On a calm morning, with the sweet sound of birds filling the forest, Alice Verger and Chloe Verger, the sisters, found themselves riding in a carriage that weaved through the trees, enjoying the peacefulness of the moment. They were engrossed in a conversation about an upcoming event. The older sister, who was not in the best physical condition, made a request to her younger sister Alice. She asked Alice to behave appropriately at the party, cautioning her about her tendency to cause trouble. Although Alice agreed, she couldn't help but express her opinion that the last party had been incredibly boring, which she felt the need to apologize for. Alice changed topic, blamed their father for their current predicament. He had spent all their fortune taking care of their sick mother and failed to manage their finances properly, leaving the family in debt. Changing the topic of conversation, Alice mentioned the rumors that were circulating about the Duke. She claimed that these rumors suggested that the Duke was not as virtuous as he appeared to be. Alice shared information about the Duke's questionable reputation, mentioning his involvement with multiple women and allegations of having illegitimate children who were supposedly executed secretly. She suggested that the Duke's fame as a good soldier was merely a facade to hide these dark aspects of his life. However, Chloe scolded her sister for spreading gossip, emphasizing that despite their financial difficulties, they should be grateful for being invited to the event. A resigned Alice let out a sigh, revealing her desire to avoid meeting the man in question during the festivities. With a distant gaze, Chloe directed her eyes towards her own leg, muttering to herself as she searched inwardly for courage and pushed away the fear that had haunted her for 3 years on the Verdier estate. The Viscount Verdier, lord of a small castle, joyfully welcomed the imperial army by opening the gates as he retreated from the battle. At that moment, Chloe, despite her weakened physical condition, Chloe dedicated herself to helping the men who were preparing for combat. She took care of their wounds and exchanged words of encouragement with them. However, the soldiers commented among themselves on Chloe's physical condition, questioning why she was making an effort to help them, being a crippled woman. Despite the unfavorable comments, Chloe continued to care for the injured, without noticing the murmurs of the soldiers at her side. Her father, on the other hand, was aware of the rumors circulating about his daughter, and his face was marked by anguish. That night in Chloe's chambers, she was surprised by a knock on the door. When she opened it, she found her servant, who announced that her father had requested that she leave the injured soldiers in the care of the servants. Chloe, with a serene expression, nodded in incomprehension at the decision. Her servant closed the door, and she sat down to reflect. Chloe began to consider whether her actions had caused her father concern. However, her mind was divided because at the same time she couldn't stop thinking about the soldiers. She imagined the fear they must have been feeling in the face of the imminent battle. Watching through the window, Chloe reflected on the values she was taught. She remembered that the nobility had a moral duty of helping the poor and sick. A loud voice broke the silence, capturing Chloe's attention and interrupting her thoughts. The sound of imposing footsteps accompanied the approach of a man towards the soldiers, saluting the commander. Chloe, curious, was unable to look away from the scene unfolding before her. The man, who revealed himself to be the commander of those soldiers, announced the tragic news of his father's death. A heavy silence took over the group when they learned that the commander's father had lost his head by the hands of the enemy, who had dared to display it on the walls of the castle. The soldiers' faces reflected the devastation caused by those words, as they received the grim news. The commander then asked if anyone wished to return home. A hesitant man spoke up, explaining that his wife had given birth and he longed to see her quickly. Other soldiers joined him, expressing the same desire. It became clear that everyone there had loved ones waiting for them at home and a deep desire to live another day. In a matter of seconds, the cry for a return to the safety of home spread among the soldiers. The commander, burdened with his own personal challenges, continued his speech. He shared that he too faced similar difficulties, unable to recover his father's body and offer a dignified funeral. However, he urged the soldiers to understand that victory in war was not achieved by luck alone, but by an unwavering determination to refuse defeat. With his imposing spirit, emphasized the need for more than luck to prevail in battle. a transformation occurred among the men who had previously been mired in sadness. The inspirational speech resonated, filling the hearts of the troops with enthusiasm and determination. Meanwhile, as Chloe observed the scene through the window, her heart accelerated with admiration. While the men sang praises to the commander's name, he noticed the presence of a young lady named Chloe. In a failed attempt to hide from his analytical eyes, she lowered herself. She pondered on the extraordinary strength of a man who, even after the loss of his own father, continued to inspire and lead with unwavering resolve that remained steadfast and unyielding. In the midst of reflections, Chloe doubted her own ability to be as strong as him, clasping her hands together as she silently pleaded with her God for a chance to allow those soldiers to return to their homes once again. The next morning, Chloe awoke early, eager to ensure no one else was awake. She needed to hurry before anyone else noticed her movement. However, her expectation was abruptly interrupted by a voice coming from behind her. As she turned around, she realized it was Gillis, but at the same time, a momentary imbalance caused by her crutch made her lose her grip. Gillis, careful as always. He promptly supported her, preventing her from falling. Chloe, surprised and grateful, expressed her gratitude with a smile after the episode. Curiosity took over Gillis, who questioned where Chloe was going. Remembering that her father had given express orders for her not to leave the room, with a gentle smile Chloe explained that she was just going to pick some herbs. Out of concern, Gillis offered to do this task for her, but Chloe firmly reminded him of the previous incident where he had picked poisonous herbs. She explained that it would be safer if she collected them herself, leaving Gillis a little embarrassed at the correction. Although Gillis expressed concern about the cold outside, Chloe responded with a warm smile, conveying the confidence that everything would be fine. Her words and gestures convinced the boy, who saw her leave with a look and blush on her cheeks. As Cho ventured outside, she reflected on how much Giles had grown. She remembered when they first met, when he barely reached her shoulders, and now she noticed in awe. He stood like a man much taller than her in the heart of the frozen forest under the gradual sunrise and an ice-covered sea. Chloe delicately picked some herbs, even though some still had a hint of snow. As she handled the plants, she felt an inner conviction that despite the circumstances, she must also be useful in some way. Out of nowhere, she heard a noise revealing that the man from the previous evening was also present, gazing at the frozen lake. Chloe, taken aback, wondered internally why he was there, but recalling the advice not to disturb him, she readied herself to depart. Before she could make a move, he interrupted her with a question, inquiring about her identity. Feeling a bit shy and lowering her head, Chloe hesitated in front of the man's imposing figure. Slowly, he made her look up, unveiling that he had noticed her presence since the night before. He pointed out that the eldest daughter of the Vergier household seemed to have a habit of secretly observing him like a rat. Chloe humbly bowed before Damien, asking for forgiveness and vehemently denying that she was eavesdropping. However, a subtle smile graced Damien's face as he questioned what transpired the previous night, leaving Chloe surprised by suggesting that perhaps it was a scheme orchestrated by her father to bring them together. While maintaining his smile, Damien commented on Lord Vergier's not-so-pure intentions, hinting that he was very observant. Chloe, bowing once more, refuted Damien's claims, stating that none of it was true. Damien then inquired about her apparent dedication to caring for his soldiers, wondering if she was seeking his attention. Continuing her explanation, Damien uttered harsh words about the Vergier household's inferiority, belittling Chloe's efforts and highlighting her physical condition as a contributing factor. Shocked, Chloe could hardly believe that this was the same man who had spoken kind words to the soldiers the night before. Composing herself, Chloe adjusted her posture and finally shared her thoughts. She explained that her motivation to aid the soldiers stemmed from her mother's teachings, who instilled in her that, as a noblewoman, it was her duty to protect the vulnerable and ensure their safe return home. Upon noticing Chloe's confidence as she approached him, Damien questioned if she truly believed her actions would never harm anyone. He pointed out that the men she had cared for had said shameful words about her condition, which could have affected her own father's mind. Damien then asked who she would hold responsible if something were to happen to her in the forest, given her physical condition. Chloe, resisting Damien's game, firmly stated that the lands were safe enough for her to walk freely. Damien, skeptical, held Chloe's crutch and questioned if she would still stand by her words after this gesture. Suddenly, he withdrew her crutch from her hands, causing her to stagger. However, to her surprise, he used her crutch to attack a snake that she hadn't even noticed. After the rescue, Damien lightly touched Chloe's legs and asked about the heredity of her condition. Embarrassed, she asked him to stop with these types of questions, as they were insensitive. Damien, insensitive himself, stated that she was being too sensitive and that he had only asked a question. He suggested that she should not allow her emotions to weaken her, comparing her to a soldier on a battlefield. Chloe firmly stated that although this could be true, it was no reason for him to meddle in her life. Damien justified his words as advice, but when she looked into his eyes, Chloe felt that he looked more like a demon than she had imagined. Holding tightly to the hem of her skirt, Chloe requested another walking stick, as hers had been damaged. She confidently asked for it to be made with wood from the country that would win. With a tempting smile, Damien approached her, wondering if she would like to gain something better. In Damien's distorted mind, he believed that Chloe's father, Lord Vergier, had hidden intentions when praising her. Moving away from Damien's unwanted touch, Chloe emphatically stated that he was completely wrong. Her father only spoke highly of her because he loved her too much, without any other intention. Even though she knew that many men might not want to marry her because of her condition, which made her appear dominant. He suggested that she should save these self-deprecating words for her personal diary. Chloe explained that it wasn't just her perception, but it was true. Before leaving, she paused and declared that even if Damien was free to humiliate her because of her condition, she wasn't unhappy because of that. Chloe's words of conviction surprised Damien, and his blue eyes widened. "I am a woman free to make my own decisions, and only I have the right to choose my happiness," proclaimed Chloe. Chloe couldn't remember how she had returned to the castle after her meeting with Duke Damien, but all she could recall was the cold morning wind enveloping her, similar to the snake she had seen in the forest. Gillis was by her side, informing her that Duke Thys and his men had already left. Thanking him with a smile, she expressed her gratitude for the information. 3 years later, in the present day, Chloe and her sister Alice arrived at the castle flowers of the tea house, inside the extravagant palace dedicated exclusively to the Tice family. Parties full of glamour took place there. Alice, next to Chloe, found the party excessively extravagant, even for her standards. The event was starting to bore her, and tiredness was already setting in. After some time of talking, a noble boy greeted Alice with a friendly smile. Alice, being the more well-known one in the room, introduced her older sister Chloe. Delighted, the nobleman lowered his posture to greet Chloe properly and invited her to dance. However, he hesitated when he noticed that she used a crutch. She declared her fatigue and inability to dance at that moment, just as the music began to reverberate throughout the room, captivating everyone with its enchanting melody. As Alice gracefully danced with the nobleman, Chloe observed, feeling a sense of joy seeing her sister enjoy herself, especially after the embarrassment from the previous party. It seemed as though everyone had forgotten about that incident, which brought a sense of relief to Chloe. However, she couldn't help but remain pensive about the Duke's motives for inviting them to the party. She questioned whether it was solely due to her father's past assistance, pondering whether she should personally express her gratitude to him. Chloe found herself lost in her thoughts. Shortly thereafter, the hall filled with conversations as someone descended the stairs. Chloe felt a slight tremor as whispers spread that the Duke had arrived. His imposing presence echoed through the room as he adjusted the ornate sword at his waist. He positioned himself in front of Chloe, emanating an intimidating energy. Chloe tried to keep her head lowered, hoping to avoid being recognized as she reluctantly stood up. With little enthusiasm, she shook off her reservations. The Duke's bright smile illuminated the room as he called out Chloe's name, drawing the attention of everyone present. He expressed his gratitude for her father's assistance 3 years ago, delighted that Chloe had accepted his invitation to the party. Reluctantly, Chloe expressed her gratitude for being there. The Duke's gaze fell upon Chloe's crutch, and he extended his hand, inviting her to dance. Chloe hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to respond to this unexpected invitation. The murmurs among the attendees grew louder, as they couldn't comprehend why the Duke would ask a woman with a disability to dance. Chloe noticed the hostile environment and felt uneasy, but Chloe knew she had to stand her ground with the apology she had given, admitting that she wasn't skilled enough to dance with him. Damien's response brought a small smile to her face, but before she could reply, a voice came from behind them. It was Crown Prince Johannes, questioning why Danny was bothering a young noble at the party. The attention shifted as the prince approached. Johannes wondered if Damien had forgotten his manners due to his time on the battlefield, but Damien argued that he was simply asking Chloe to dance, emphasizing that she was a strong woman who wouldn't be easily shaken. Johann sighed apologetically for his cousin's behavior, but Chloe firmly intervened, explaining that Damien was just trying to help her so she wouldn't feel alone at the party due to her physical condition. Surprised by Chloe's words, Johann smiled and showed interest in her, placing his hand on her shoulder and praising the beauty and boldness of the Vergier family's daughters. Meanwhile, Damien watched in silence, clearly uncomfortable with Johannes' gesture towards Chloe. In that moment, Chloe realized that her sister was no longer by her side, and a wave of concern washed over her. She wondered if Alice had gotten into trouble again. After bidding them farewell, Prince Johannes continued to enjoy the party, leaving Chloe even more worried about her sister's disappearance. Damien approached Chloe once more, asking if she was concerned about her sister Alice, who had gone missing. Chloe confirmed that she was indeed worried about Alice, and suddenly, Damien lightly touched Chloe's hands that were holding her cane and slowly brought his face closer to hers, as if he was about to kiss her. She turned her face away, avoiding the contact, as he abruptly took the cane from her hand again. Feeling that he was becoming unbearable, suggesting that he would help her find her sister, Chloe agreed to accept Damien's assistance in locating Alice. Despite Chloe's difficulty walking, she noticed that Damien was aware of this. Yet he continued to make unwelcome comments. It was perplexing for Chloe because, despite his sarcastic tone, he was also providing help. As they strolled through the palace gardens, they discussed rumors of someone's arrival, hinting that it could be Alice. Chloe silently prayed that her sister wasn't causing any trouble, but their progress was halted by an embarrassing sight. Alice was engaged in a passionate kiss in the gardens of the imperial palace. The dark-skinned man seemed unfazed by the scene, unlike Alice, who was clearly astonished by everything. Alice requested that the man named Eddie step away, fearing her family's reaction, but he refused to leave her side. He gazed at her with intense eyes and professed his willingness to die for her. Upon hearing the boy's name, Chloe began to recall a conversation with her sister where Alice mentioned meeting someone interesting, whom Chloe now identified as Eddie. She couldn't believe that her sister had been secretly seeing this guy all along. Damien noticed Chloe's discomfort and inquired about her well-being in that situation. Chloe humbly apologized while Alice attempted to come up with an excuse, claiming that Edward had appeared out of nowhere. However, Chloe didn't want to hear any more excuses and asked her sister to leave without saying anything else, so that she could properly apologize to Damien for her sister's actions. Once they were alone, Damien observed Chloe's expression and uttered words that she dreaded hearing. Alice was once again the subject of controversy in high society, and Chloe, with trembling hands, pleaded with Damien not to disclose this shameful side of her sister. Damien, however, changed his expression to a more serious one and questioned why he shouldn't reveal the situation to anyone. It seemed that Damien showed no mercy and even insinuated that he could blame the Vergier family for allowing an unauthorized person to enter their premises. Upon hearing Damien's intense voice, Chloe felt a growing fear and realized that she needed to somehow convince him not to bring disgrace upon her family. Seeing no other option, she fell to her knees and bowed. She stated it was all her fault for not keeping her sister in line. Chloe attempted to persuade him not to reveal the situation by praising Damien's achievements and highlighting his abilities as a great commander who led the heroes in the war. Damien couldn't help but smile when he realized that she was praising him, but Chloe argued that he should be grateful to her family for their support in the past. However, Damien let out a mocking laugh and stated that he had already repaid any debts when he invited her to the party. Realizing that her approach wasn't working and that Damien was about to walk away, Chloe desperately clung to his feet in a last-ditch effort, begging for forgiveness. With each passing moment, her shaking became more pronounced as she promised to do anything if he forgave her family. Damien approached her, questioning why she was acting this way and noting that her current behavior was very different from what it was 3 years ago. He observed that this person in front of him didn't seem to match the image he had of her. As the sound of fireworks filled the air, Chloe remained motionless, her gaze fixed on Damien's face as he uttered his final words. He indicated that her despair and plea at his feet were driven by her sister Alice's impending marriage, which was the family's only hope for a financially stable future through a convenient union. However, he questioned Chloe's fate due to her physical condition, suggesting that she was destined to remain single despite Damien's pessimistic observations. Chloe, however, asserted that she would be fine and that her happiness lay in the happiness of her loved ones. As he approached her, he inquired if she was truly willing to do anything to ensure that, to which she responded with determination. Upon hearing her answer, Damien's expression hardened and he frowned. Eventually, he placed his hand on Chloe's face and informed her that she could return to her mansion while he contemplated what he wants in return. However, Chloe hesitated, recalling the Crown Prince's request to introduce her sister to him. Upon hearing this, Damien's voice grew rougher as he asserted that she was not permitted to draw the attention of another man unless she desired her family to suffer the consequences. By sliding his finger across her lips, he emphasized the extent of his generosity, leaving Chloe even more embarrassed. He taunted her by insinuating that the place they were in was only frequented by lovers, hinting that rumors about them would soon circulate in those gardens. As soon as he departed, Chloe remained stunned on the floor as fireworks echoed around her. 3 months later, at the Verdier mansion, she spent the entire summer attempting to compose a thank-you letter to Damien. She acknowledged that it was because of him that the rumors about Alice and Eddie in the gardens had not spread, bringing her a certain sense of relief. She was pleased that her sister was on the verge of marrying a nobleman respected by society. At that moment, Gil Lee entered the room with a tray of tea to serve Chloe. When she inquired about Alice, Chloe grew concerned upon learning that her sister was in the room experiencing stomach pain and had no appetite. Alice's fear of seeing Edward again and using it as an excuse overwhelmed her. But Gilly tried to reassure her by saying that Alice was simply unwell and would be happy with the upcoming wedding. However, Gil was concerned about Chloe, as she would be alone if Alice got married. In response, Chloe smiled at him and expressed her belief that she would never be alone as long as she was with him. These words deeply moved Gillis, causing him to blush intensely after a moment of embarrassment. Gillis then realized that Chloe was writing a letter, and she explained that she was afraid of making a mistake. She was hesitant to finish the letter because she feared that Damien would find a flaw in her writing. Moments later, Chloe's father appeared in a state of joy, informing them that Damien was on his way to the mansion and they needed to quickly prepare everything to welcome him. Chloe felt a shiver down her spine, as if a venomous snake was about to attack her. She felt hunted by Damien. Hours later, at the entrance of the mansion, Chloe's father greeted Damien with formality, expressing the honor of having him there and asking if he was okay. Damien, with an impassive face, questioned why there were fewer employees than before. Chloe's father was about to explain the financial situation, but Chloe intervened and positioned herself in front of her father. She quickly stated that the castle was in disarray, but she would do her best to be a good host and make the environment as comfortable as possible. Damien promptly stood in front of Chloe, declaring that if a noble couldn't be a good host, they didn't deserve the title. Later, Chloe, her father, and Damien gathered at the table, with the exception of Alice, who Chloe's father stated was indisposed and couldn't join them. Damien forced a smile and expressed hope that it was nothing serious, while thanking them for the meal that was placed on the table. However, he could tell that Chloe was not happy. As Chloe's crestfallen expression remained unchanged and she continued to avoid the food, it was evident that something was bothering her. Damien could clearly see the distress in her eyes. To change the subject, Chloe's father brought up her love for walking in the forest, emphasizing how it brought her comfort even during difficult times. With a provocative tone, He mentioned the incident from 3 years ago when Damien was at the mansion. He asked if Chloe had shared anything about that day with him. Just moments later, Jess appeared and handed Chloe a glass of water to make her feel better. The proximity between them indicated that they were acquaintances, which did not go unnoticed by Damien, who gave them a hostile look. He abruptly changed the tone of the conversation, suggesting that they should all go on a hunt in the forest the next day. This left a heavy atmosphere hanging over the table. Nervously, Chloe's father tried to reason with Dai about his daughter's condition, suggesting that someone else could accompany him. However, Damien interrupted and expressed his desire to hear the answer directly from Chloe, giving her no choice but to agree. She reluctantly replied that she would join them, and Damien responded with a cheeky smile, saying he would be happy to accompany her on his horse. This left Chloe speechless at his provocation. The next day, Chloe was ready to leave in her riding clothes, but Damien stopped her from getting on his horse. Worried about her safety, Chloe hesitated. Sensing her hesitation, Damien urged her to hurry up. Chloe then handed her cane to Gillis and asked him to wait, causing an irritating sensation to run through Damien's body as he watched the two of them so close. While they rode together, Damien brought up the topic of Chloe's relationship with her servant, Gillis. He questioned why they were so close. Chloe explained that Gillis had been serving her family since a young age and remained loyal even during difficult times when they couldn't afford to pay servants well. Gillis was more than just a simple servant. Upon hearing this, Damien felt a surge of jealousy that he couldn't control. It prompted him to provoke Chloe, urging the horse to go as fast as possible. Riding at full speed, he asked Chloe to choose the path they should take, demanding a quick response. Chloe's heart raced as she answered as quickly as she could. After all the commotion, she held onto the horse's reins, still shaking, wondering what was wrong and why Damien was tormenting her in this way. Breathing heavily, she felt a hand on her face. It was Damien, trying to calm her down little by little, whispering sweet words in her ear to reassure her. But Chloe couldn't help but feel as if she was being enchanted by a demon,